Do you know what keeps a narcissist awake at night? Not your beauty, not your kindness, but the fact that they can no longer control you. Today, I'm going to show you 10 powerful ways to become the woman a narcissist will never get over. This is not about revenge. It's about reclaiming yourself, strong, clear, and untouchable. If you've ever been in a toxic relationship, manipulated by false hope, or made to feel like you weren't enough, this video is for you. Because here's the truth. You're not weak. You were simply caught in a game designed to break you. Until now. I walk you through real, actionable strategies, not to beat the narcissist, but to become the woman they can't manipulate anymore. No more dependency, no more waiting, and no more forgiving people who feed on your pain. If you're ready to heal, rebuild, and live a life where narcissists no longer haunt your story, you've come to the right place. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and watch all the way to the end, because the most powerful shift always happens in the final chapter. Let's begin. 1. Become the woman who doesn't need closure to start again. One of the biggest illusions a narcissist plants in your mind is this: there's still something unfinished between us. They want you stuck in the waiting for an apology, waiting for change, waiting for one final moment of recognition. They manipulate your emotions by leaving open doors, vague breakups, and moments of false kindness that keep you from truly walking away. And in that limbo, they keep control over you. But here's the truth. You don't need closure to restart your life. You don't need a final answer to move on. You don't need an apology to forgive. You don't need a perfect ending to write your next chapter. It might sound simple, but this is one of the most powerful shifts you'll ever make. When you stop waiting for closure, you stop playing in their theater. You'll realize you've been trapped in an emotional loop, holding out for that final scene, that fair ending, that acknowledgement of your pain. But narcissists don't play fair. They want you stuck in the grey area because it keeps you under their control. They know that if nothing feels finished, you'll still give them energy, still think about them, miss them, maybe even hate them. And to them, that's a win. Your attention is their fuel. So ask yourself, what happens if I give myself the closure? They, not through anger, but through decisive action. Not through words, but by choosing yourself, fully and finally. When you do that, you break the entire power dynamic they've built. You go from being the person waiting for answers to being the one writing the next chapter, without them in it. And guess what? They panic. They may try to crawl back in a check-in text, a fake apology, a dramatic gesture to make you feel guilty for walking away, but that's just another move in their game, a way to get you back into their story where they play the lead. The woman a narcissist never gets over is the one who doesn't need them to end the story. She closes the door with her own power. She no longer asks, "Why did you do this to me?" because she understands some questions don't have answers, and some people don't deserve any more of your time. She puts her energy into healing, rebuilding her self-worth, and living a life that's no longer defined by someone else's ambiguity. So if you've been waiting for a sign, a reason, or permission to walk away, this is it. You don't need an apology. You don't need a final conversation. You don't need to wrap things up. Because the truth is, when you stop showing up, the story ends. Let them live forever wondering when you left. As for you, you've gone so far, they'll never find the version of you they thought they broke, and that is freedom. If this speaks to your journey, keep watching to discover the remaining 9 ways, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss another powerful healing video. 2. Become the woman who doesn't react the way they trained you to. Every narcissist builds a system. A silent, calculated system of control. They don't always scream. Sometimes they just withdraw, go cold, give you silence as punishment, then offer affection like a reward. They condition you, like clockwork, to fear their disapproval and crave their attention. Without even realizing it, you begin living to avoid their rage and to earn their crumbs of love. You walk on eggshells. You rehearse your words before you speak. You anticipate their moods, trying to manage them so you don't get hurt. That, my friend, is emotional programming, and narcissists are masters at it. But here's where everything shifts. When you stop reacting the way they trained you to, when you stop defending, stop explaining, stop falling into their traps of guilt and confusion, the game collapses. You see, narcissists don't just feed on your attention, they feed on your reaction. The sighs, the tears, the arguments, even the silence when it's filled with fear, they sense it all. It tells them, I still have power over you. But when you respond with calm clarity, or even better, no reaction at all, you break their emotional loop. They expect you to explode. They expect you to chase. They expect you to prove your worth after they've withdrawn it. So when you don't, they panic, because now they've lost the script. Now you're not playing your role anymore. You're no longer the version of yourself they created, the one who tiptoed, apologized, and begged. You've stepped out of their story, and you've reclaimed your own. It's in that moment, when you no longer respond like the puppet they trained, that they realize something terrifying. You're no longer under their control, and that truth will haunt them far more than any confrontation ever could. 3. Become the woman who heals without apologizing for breaking down. You've broken before. You've collapsed, cried in silence at night, doubted yourself, and wondered why you weren't strong enough. And then you apologized, not just to others but to yourself, for not being the bold, fearless woman you thought you should be. But here's the truth. You were never weak. You were simply honest about your emotions in a relationship that was emotionally suffocating. And the fact that you broke wasn't a failure. It was proof that you gave your all and still had the strength to walk away. The narcissist wants you to feel ashamed of your breakdown. They want you to believe you're too emotional, too sensitive, too needy. They want you to look back at your past and blame yourself for hurting too deeply, for wanting too much, for asking for the kind of love they never intended to give. And if you believe that narrative, you trap yourself in shame, the kind of shame that keeps you quiet, keeps your wounds hidden, and forces you to pretend you're fine. You wear a mask of strength while silently bleeding. You try to heal in private, but still feel guilty for having fallen apart in the first place. No. You don't owe anyone an apology for breaking down. No one walks through a storm without getting scratched. No one loves deeply and walks away unscarred. And absolutely no one should feel sorry for being hurt by disrespect and manipulation. You are human. You feel, you love, you hoped. And that doesn't make you weak. That makes you real. When you begin your healing journey, do it with self-respect, not shame. See your scars as proof. Proof that you've survived something most people can't even imagine. You don't have to hide your wounds. You don't have to overshare either. You simply have to move forward, gently, deliberately, and with power. You get to say, I broke, but even more powerfully, you get to say, and then I got back up. You don't have to go back to who you used to be. You don't have to become a perfect version of yourself to prove you've healed. You just have to live in alignment with your worth, whole, grounded, and no longer defined by your past. Healing isn't a competition. It doesn't require fast results. It doesn't demand that you look okay for anyone. It is your sacred, private journey. No audience needed. And sometimes the most powerful healing begins when you sit alone, in quiet, and say, I forgive myself, not because I was wrong, but because I deserve peace. Maybe you've loved the wrong person, trusted too easily, hoped too long, but that never made you any less valuable. In fact, it made you the most authentic person in a room full of masks. And one day, when you look back, you'll see it was those moments of breaking that taught you how to rebuild on a stronger foundation, not to protect yourself out of fear, but to love yourself unconditionally. 4. Become the woman who makes a narcissist's promises meaningless. Do you remember their promises? I'll change. I just need a little more time. Things will be okay as long as you don't give up on me. Those promises were never backed by action. They were just tools to keep you hooked, to make you keep investing your emotions into something that was never going to happen. Narcissists don't promise to change. They promise to keep you waiting. They promise just enough hope, only to pull it back the moment you start to doubt. And suddenly, you're still there. Another day, another week, another year, all because of potential. But do you know what happens when you stop living for their promises? You face the truth. You stop asking when. You stop dreaming about who they could be and start looking at who they actually are. And you realize they're not changing because they never intended to. When you no longer fall for the someday, when you understand that real love doesn't delay forever, doesn't always need fixing, you begin to pull your power back, and that terrifies the narcissist. They fear your clarity. They fear your doubt. They fear the moment you ask, "If you truly love me, then why does it hurt this much?" That question stuns them because they have no answer. And when you stop waiting, they lose their grip. The woman a narcissist can never get over is the one who stops being bought by promises. She no longer bets her heart on maybe. She measures everything by action and walks away the moment it doesn't match what she knows she deserves. She doesn't need a man with good potential. She wants a man who's already good right now. And when she leaves, not out of hate, but out of self-respect, she turns all their sweet words into silence. No arguing, no drama, just a quiet exit with grounded feet and a clear heart. At that point, the narcissist loses their last audience, and their scripted love speeches fall into empty space. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to prove they were terrible. All you have to do is live in truth. And the truth is, someone who truly loves you won't keep you in confusion and pain forever. Someone who truly wants to change will take action, not make excuses. 5. Become the woman who chooses self-respect over a relationship. There's one thing many women who've endured narcissistic abuse carry deep inside. That lingering guilt for walking away. The feeling that maybe you gave up too soon. That maybe you weren't patient enough, loving enough, forgiving enough. You told yourself, if I just try a little harder, love a little more, give a little more, maybe it will change. But nothing changed. The more you tolerated, the more they pushed. The more you sacrificed, the more they took you for granted. And love, the thing that once lit you up, became the thing that drained you completely. Narcissists are masters at making you believe that the relationship is more important than who you are. They make you tie your self-worth to keeping them, even if that means losing your peace, your boundaries, and your sense of self. And that's the moment you have to ask yourself, am I protecting love, or am I sacrificing my dignity to hold on to an illusion? The woman a narcissist can never get over is not the one who endured the longest. She's the one who left at the right time, because she valued herself more than any relationship. She doesn't place her identity in someone else's hands. She knows that if a relationship demands you to trade your self-respect, your boundaries, and your inner peace, it's not love, it's a trap. And when she walks away, the part that hurts the narcissist the most isn't her leaving, it's why she left. She didn't leave out of anger. She didn't leave to punish. She left because she finally loved herself enough to stop giving to someone who only took. And to someone who believes they are the center of your universe, that decision is a blow they can't recover from. Self-respect is something no one can take from you, unless you hand it over, and you've handed it over before. Every time you stayed quiet to avoid their rage, every time you forgave too quickly, every time you allowed your boundaries to be crossed and told yourself, it's okay, just this once, but now, you're different. Now you've learned how to say no. You've learned not to explain yourself. You've learned to protect your dignity with every decision to walk away from what poisons your spirit. When a woman chooses self-respect over a relationship, she's not alone. She's free from emotional roller coasters, free from the lie of not being enough, free to live a life where she doesn't need anyone's permission to be herself. 6. Become the woman who no longer tries to prove her worth. When you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you're constantly made to feel like you're in a competition, one you can never win, where you're never enough. And the rules keep changing. You try to love them the right way. You try not to upset them. You try to listen, to understand, to endure, to forgive, hoping that someday they'll finally see your worth. But the more you try, the more they pull away. The more you give, the more they act like you mean nothing. Love becomes a performance, and your worth gets tied to how well you can please them. A narcissist wants you to believe that you have to do something special to be worthy of love. You have to prove you're good enough for them to stay. And when you're trying, explaining, defending, fighting, you're playing the exact role they wrote for you. They don't care about your explanations. They care about watching you struggle for their approval, because that fuels their ego. It makes them feel powerful. She needs me to feel worthy. But you know what? The moment you stop trying to prove your worth, you take your power back. You don't need to be smarter, prettier, softer, or more perfect. You just need to realize you were always enough, exactly as you are. You don't need to race, perform, or beg for love served in crumbs. You deserve love, not because of what you do, but because you are you. Not the woman a narcissist can't get over is the woman who stops playing. She doesn't fix herself to be loved. She doesn't allow someone else to define her worth based on their moods or approval. She walks off the stage. She refuses to keep playing the role of the girl endlessly trying to earn love. And in that moment, she dismantles the entire structure of manipulation the narcissist relied on. When you no longer chase validation, what do? They panic. Because every game they've played depends on one thing, you caring about what they think of you. And when you stop caring, they lose control of the spotlight. No more audience, no more fan club, just them, alone with their empty ego, collapsing without your attention. You don't need to scream, "I am worthy." You just need to live like it's true. Walk with strength, hold your boundaries. No explanations, no apologies, no going back, because real love doesn't require performance. Real love sees you, hears you, and accepts you as you are. 7. Become the woman who stops hoping they will change. Hope? It sounds beautiful, but in the hands of a narcissist, hope becomes a mental shackle. It's not something that helps you move forward. It's what keeps you stuck in a relationship that's long been broken. You hope they'll listen. You hope one day they'll truly see you, love you properly, realize how much they've hurt you. You hold on to the better version of them, the one they showed you for a fleeting moment, just enough to make you believe that maybe there's still something worth staying for. And so hope becomes the reason you don't leave. You convince yourself, maybe they're trying. Maybe I just need to be more patient. No one's perfect, maybe. They need me to help them change. But the truth is, they don't want to change. Not because they can't, but because they don't have to, as long as you keep staying, keep loving, keep forgiving, no matter how many times they hurt you. A narcissist doesn't change because you hope. They feed off that hope. They keep you trapped in a repeating cycle. Hurt, apology, promise, hurt again. And the cycle only ends when you end it. End the belief that your love can save someone who doesn't want to be saved. End the wait for something that never truly existed. End the fantasy of who they could be and start facing who they really are. The woman a narcissist can't forget is the one who once hoped and then woke up. She didn't leave because she stopped loving. She left because she realized that love cannot do the work for someone else, and that someone who refuses to face themselves will always hurt others to avoid their own growth. She saw that the more she hoped, the more she lost the present moment. The more she waited, the more she lost herself. And when she let go of hope, what happened? She took her energy back. She stopped trying to read their mood, decode their messages, or analyze every word. She returned to herself, to heal, to grow, to rise. And for a narcissist, that's a nightmare, because hope is the last thread that keeps them in your life. When you stop hoping, the tie is cut, and you are free. Hope is a beautiful thing in a healthy relationship, but in a toxic one, hope becomes a trap wrapped in sweet promises, and you deserve better. You deserve a love that doesn't require waiting, fixing, or suffering to prove your worth. 8. Become the woman who no longer repeats her pain to be believed. Something strange happens after you leave a relationship with a narcissist. You feel the need to explain to your friends, your family, your co-workers, even to them, why you left, what you endured, and all the pain you carried in silence. You want someone to understand, to say, "I get why you walked away. You weren't wrong." And with that need, you begin to talk over and over, sometimes with rage, sometimes with tears, sometimes in cold logic. But eventually you realize retelling your pain doesn't make it hurt less. When you keep repeating the wound, you keep it alive. When you try to explain the abuse, you're still giving it space in the story you should now be writing, a story without them in it. When you still need someone to validate that you were right, you're still living by the rules the narcissist left behind. You don't need that. You don't need to be right to be free. You just need to choose yourself without needing to prove anything. The woman a narcissist can never forget is the one who walks away in quiet strength. She doesn't scream. She doesn't accuse. She doesn't expose. Not because she's weak, but because she refuses to spend another moment explaining someone who no longer deserves her words. She understands. Truth is truth. It doesn't need belief. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't need an audience. When you stop retelling your pain, what happens? You free yourself from the role of victim. You no longer live in the question, "Why did this happen to me?" You begin to live in the statement, "It happened, but it no longer defines me." It's a powerful turning point. From being defined by pain to being defined by freedom. The narcissist will never forget you when you stop reacting the way they expect. When you no longer scream, post cryptic statuses, or call for closure. When you go silent, not out of fear but out of understanding that they're no longer worth your voice, your time, or any space in your story. The less you speak of them, the more they feel invisible. And for someone who lives for control and attention, that is the cruelest punishment. You don't need to retell your pain for someone to validate your truth. You were right the moment you chose to leave. You don't need to recount every gaslighting moment, every silent treatment, every manipulation. You just need to say to yourself, "I'm not there anymore, and I'm never going back." 9. Become the woman who refuses to hate. This may be one of the most paradoxical truths of healing. You don't have to forgive right away. You don't have to love them again. But you also don't have to hate them. Sounds strange, right? Because you've been hurt so deeply. You gave everything, your time, your love, your trust. And in return, you got silence, manipulation, betrayal, and lies. You have every reason to be angry. Every reason to hate. Enough pain to want them to pay for what they did. But here's the truth. As powerful as hate may seem, it's still a form of emotional connection. When you still hate them, you're still thinking about them. You're still reacting, still engaging, still giving them the power to affect your peace. You spend time imagining their downfall, their loneliness, their regret, hoping it'll somehow ease your own suffering. But you know what? Narcissists don't survive on love, they survive on control. And when you hate them, they still win. Because they still occupy your mind. Because they still disrupt your peace. The woman a narcissist can never get over is the one who no longer feels anything for them. Not love, not hate, just irrelevance. She doesn't need closure, she doesn't need to forgive. He just chooses to let go, not because they deserve it, but because she deserves peace. Letting go of hate doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It doesn't minimize the truth of what you endured. It doesn't erase the memories or make everything okay. It simply means you choose not to let the past control your emotions today. You choose to step out of the role of the angry victim and become the free woman, no longer bound by what happened. Indifference, true indifference, is one of the most powerful signs of healing. It's not pretending to be strong. It's being so deeply rooted in your truth that you no longer need emotions to validate your healing. When you see them again and your heart doesn't race, when there's no fear, no anger, no desire to prove anything, that's when you know you've won, not against them, but against the pain that once held you hostage. And to a narcissist, that's the ultimate failure, because what keeps them alive isn't love, is influence. Losing influence, losing control, losing the ability to shake your emotions is something they can never accept. 10. Become the woman who writes. A. Without them in it, a narcissist always believes there'll be a permanent chapter in your story. They want to be the reason you hurt, the reason you cry, the reason you can't love again. They don't need to be in your life. They just want to be sure they're still in your mind. They want you to write the rest of your life around them. Even if you walk away, even if you never speak again, they still want to be the center of your thoughts, your choices, your emotions. Because to them, being remembered, even through pain, is still a win. And that's what you must break. You are not a side character in their story, and they are no longer any character in yours. The woman a narcissist can never get over is the one who doesn't write them into any new chapter of her life. Not as a villain, not as a tragic lesson, not as the one who hurt me, but as a full stop. Not worth mentioning again. She doesn't spend her time seeking revenge, proving herself, or succeeding so they'll regret losing her. She succeeds because she chose herself. She's happy because she no longer writes a life that depends on anyone's approval. She lives freely, with herself as the main character, her healing as the journey, and a future untouched by ghosts of the past. Writing a new life without them doesn't mean denying what happened. It simply means putting them where they belong, in the past, and the past has no power over you anymore. You move forward without looking back. You choose your job, your home, your partner, your joy, without referencing your old wounds. You build a life that feels safe, exciting, peaceful, and deeply yours. And that, more than anything, is what they can't handle. Because when you're no longer in pain, no longer saying their name, no longer dissecting what happened, they no longer exist in how you define yourself. And for someone who lives off control and presence in others' minds, being fully forgotten is their greatest defeat. You don't need to prove anything to them. Your life doesn't need to be a consequence of their actions. Your life is the beginning of something entirely your own, once and for all. And from here, you rewrite everything with your own voice, with yourself as the main character. A woman who rose from heartbreak without revenge, without replays, without needing to turn back. If you've made it this far, let me say this clearly. You don't need to become a perfect version of yourself to be worthy of love. You just need to become the kind of woman you would choose every single day. The narcissist may have tried to make you believe you were replaceable, not enough, or incapable of standing without them. But through every step, every part of this journey, you've proven the opposite. You didn't just rise. You became the woman they can't control, can't manipulate, and can never forget. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. Your victory is the life you're creating, rooted in awareness, freedom, and true peace. The old chapters are just that, the past. But you're writing a new one, and this time the pen is in your hand. No more scripts written by someone else. No more living by someone else's emotions. Just you, with your self-respect, your self-love, and a future wide open with possibility. If this journey spoke to your heart, share it with another woman who needs a spark of light. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and stay with me for more healing, more growth, and more returning to the powerful self you've always been. Thank you for being here, and remember, you don't need to be remembered by the one who broke you. You only need to fully live in the life you're rewriting with absolute freedom,